Welcome to this getting started tutorial for Swiss Army Spline. The first thing we're going to do is to create a new Spline object. This you can find in the game object menu. Click on new Spline. You see there will be a new point. We are right in edit mode. And with holding shift you can create new points. So let's create a few points. And let's make this spline loop. With shift and holding your mouse over an existing spline segment, you can add points on that segment. So that is good enough for now. Let's look into the meshing section, into the extruders. So we will add a new extruder. We will create a new profile, and it will ask us to set a location to save it. Let's call this tutorial. And this is the profile editor. When you hold Alt, you can create and add points to a profile. Let's create a few points. Let's close this profile so it is looping. The blue lines you see are normals. And the points, this is a shape that we will extrude later. You will understand in just a moment. Let's select all of the points, rotate 45 degrees and add more points. And go to the UV section, uncheck normalize calculation, click on calculate UVs and click on done. So you can see our shape is a little bit thick. Let's go back into the editor, select all the points, scale by 0.5, click on done. Let's move these points around a bit. You can use your W, E and R commands, which are basically shortcuts for these buttons, to move a point, rotate a point and scale a point, which basically controls the tangents. Let's select the mesh for a moment and apply a material. It is a little bit stretched because when we scaled this profile we didn't recalculate the UVs. So let's do that now. Now we have an unstretched rope, and you can see here are a few settings like offset, inside and outside of the spline, and you can have some UV modifiers. You can set a start and an end offset. That is basically an extruder. Next we will look into the distributors. Let's add a distributor. We set it to use one mesh. Let's use a sphere. This is just a unity sphere, by the way. You can use your own meshes. Let's scale EVs so they are more fitting, and let's put a higher spacing, like let's do 3. And we can see the spheres are rotated, the UVs are rotated, so we can fix that by just applying additional rotation here. And there you have all kind of offsets and randomization. There you can, for example, randomize the scale. Puts 3 times the scale on the Y or on X. And of course you can put a global scale multiplier. And yeah, basically our first object is ready. So let's stop, look into something more exciting. First, rename this to rope. Let's create a new spline object. New spline. This point somewhere. Add a new point. You can, by the way, also cycle through the points here and adjust it. It's 10, 20, and 0 rotation. Let's make a little bit of an arc. The thing I want to create here is a little rope bridge. And for that we are going to add an extruder. We already have a profile in here. It's called ropes. I can show you this profile of basically just 2 circles, and there are 2 separate profiles. These are sub profiles. You can switch through them here. You can duplicate a profile. For example, you select all of this duplicate profile, and then you move it over, and you have this profile. And you can manipulate it, or just delete it, because that's already fine for our purpose. And done. We can see this is extruded. Let's select the mesh, pick the rope, and put some UV modifier here. 15 looks about right. And now we duplicate this and offset it up by 1 unit for some handrails. And you can see, since this is bent, this follows the arc of the spline, but we can fix that by checking Y up. And that basically makes sure the offset is always vertical. Now let's look into the pillars. These are very handy. These are also using profiles, and we assign the same profile again, and we use offset Y up and orientation Y up, and we offset it 1 unit up. We apply the spacing of 1, and let's not start it, but put, I don't know, maybe 0.25, no, 0.5. And for the end, 0.5 as well. And let's apply UV scale of 15 as well. So we're almost there. We just need to distribute some boards, and for this we will use a distributor, and we pick just a unity cube, and let's pick a different material for this cube that we can do with a different submesh index. If we now pick the mesh, we have 2 material elements on the material array on the mesh renderer, and let's pick the wood. And the way the UVs are laid out on the unity cube, you can see, is along. So basically we want to create a board, and for that we need to scale, make it very small in height, like 8 centimeters and 20 centimeters apart. But I don't like the way this is oriented, so we rotate it 90 degrees and instead put 0.2 on the X and 1.3 maybe on the Y. And the stretching I don't like so much, so we can modify that with the UV scale. That looks okay for me. Let's offset the boards a bit up. And 0.25, so it doesn't start right with the rope. And let's put a spacing of 0.25. Now maybe that is too much. 3, 0.4, and maybe make it a bit wider. 2. We have lost the material setting because the mesh didn't generate. And when that happens, it refreshes the array, but that's easy to fix. Just go back in reassign the wood material. Our rope bridge is almost ready. Let's see what we can do to improve it. We have a spacing of 0.4 and we spawn the ropes every meter. So we need our spacing to be compatible. So we are in between. Let's put like 3. That looks about okay. We can add some randomization to make this rope bridge a little bit more old, worn. Already looks more interesting. And what we can do to spice it up, just like with our rope here, we can add some knots. So let's close this distributor, add a new one. Let's pick a Unity sphere. Of course you can use your own more optimized spheres and meshes. But for this tutorial we just use the Unity sphere. Let's put maybe 4 on this, on our scale 0.15 maybe. And now we offset this Y up 1 meter and 0.5, and we start 0.5 and 0.5, and we rotate on the X 90 degrees. Looking good. Now we can duplicate this element, open a new one, and offset it the other side. And if we want, we could also repeat this for the lower part. And our customizable rope bridge is ready. Okay, let's look into another example. And let's create a new spline object. Move this somewhere out and create a second point. Let's create a roller coaster. For this we will use a included profile. You can create your own profiles if you want, but this one works for this example. It's basically just 3 circles, and that alone is not much, but we will add a distributor. And here we use pre-made mesh. Yeah, it looks like this. So very simple to model this. But if you want to model the whole thing in a 3D program, you would spend quite a bit more time, and the spline that you have created in the 3D program wouldn't be ready for animation. And here you can solve both things at once. So let's look into this. Roller coaster also needs some pillars, so we can use a simple profile like this pipe. The pipe is a little bit thick, so we will scale it down using the scale curve. I'll put 0.8, I think is fine. We want the orientation to be always vertical, and we want to offset this down a little bit. 5 looks about right. And these pillars are very short, so let's make them very long. This is maybe too long, but we can fix that. So let's create a Unity plane, set the transform, and scale this up by quite a bit. And you can see our pillars are going through this plane, and we can fix it by enabling use raycast in the pillar, and that will just shoot the ray against the collider of this plane, and this way we don't have unnecessarily long pillars. Let's move the points down a little bit. I think we're excessively high. And let's assign a material to this. Let's use the metal. And this is already looking fine and can already be used for animation. So let's look into animation. Create a new animator. We assign this spline to the animator, and we create a cube as a child. Doesn't need to be a child, but is more orderly that way. So now we scale this cube to look something like a roller coaster wagon, like 1.5, 0.8, 5, and I think that's just fine. Let's put a color. And now we take the animator, we assign a wagon, a cube here, and let's start not on the 0 point of the spline, but maybe 3 meters ahead. Click move wagons to start position, and we can see we need to offset this, and what we can do here, 0.3 should be good. And I think that's fine. And since it's a roller coaster, we want to use gravity and maybe a little bit less drag. And when we hit play, and it will respawn at the beginning and accelerate like crazy because it's only going down. So for now, let's disable gravity and put a constant speed. Let's put, I don't know, 40 kilometers per hour, and hit play. Looks fine. So let's pick the spline again and add some points. Roller coasters usually have steep turns. We can do that by just rotating the point around the z-axis, maybe also this one. Oops. Not in global space, but in local space. And here we have a turn the other way, so we can add a point in between and rotate that. Here I've loaded a little bit more carefully placed roller coaster curve. Let's take a look at that. And from the perspective of the cart. And by the way, everything in the Swiss Army Spline inspectors has tooltips. Just take a look and experiment a bit. The same goes for the profile editor. Everything here has tooltips, so you shouldn't get lost. And if you still want to learn a little bit more, you can always take a look at the manual. But I think experimentation is the best way to go to learn this asset. So I hope you find it useful, and see you. Bye bye.